All right, YouTube, Occult Literature Video 35, The Rosary of the Philosophers. This is, I believe, the longest work that I have edited. Morbid Stories is longer, but as far as edited works, 176 pages of material, and that's in a fairly good-sized format. It's a pretty long work. It's also extraordinarily dense. It's extremely in-depth. If you're interested in alchemy, it is a must-read. There is no other work beyond the Rosary of the Philosophers within alchemy that gives you more detail, more backstory. It gives you more both fairly literalistic interpretations of alchemy as well as philosophical statements. As always, link in the description to the Amazon page where you can buy my edition of this work. It is fully illustrated. I did include the illustrations, unlike the 12 Keys, where the illustrations came later. They were not original to the very original manuscript, so I left them out. Here, I kept those in. They are original to sort of the tradition of the Rosary. Second link to my books blog, which is under maintenance, but the maintenance is now half done, and quickly approaching 3/4 done, because it quite literally is 4 blog posts and 4 side links. And you can find a great many more alchemical works there. I've already made a post compiling all of the works on alchemy, as well as a different post for all grimoires. The more diabolical side, the more high ritualism, the more in-depth rites, you could say, as opposed to like the folk curses and the fortune telling and so forth. I'll be making those updates soon. The Rosary of the Philosophers is 176 pages of extremely dense material. There are hundreds of philosophical statements ascribed to people like Aristotle and so forth, ascribed to philosophers and alchemists and sort of the intelligentsia of the era and before, all the way back to antiquity, mostly detailing things regarding chemical processes. Not always. Some of it has to do with like spirituality. That really gets meshed in anytime you're talking about alchemy, unless it's sort of like the Hollandus works. Those are maybe a little bit more just the hands-on material that happens to praise God occasionally for giving you some sort of divine miracle. The Rosarium Philosophorum is the foremost alchemical work. It's even explicitly mentioned in several other alchemical works that have nothing to do with the same tradition as being one of the worthy. I haven't seen anybody decry it. I've only seen several other works praise it. I believe one of Paracelsus' works, he actually said, oh yeah, you should definitely have this work, and this has good material in it, as opposed to those works over there. This is sort of the premier alchemical work. It goes through a series of sections that detail also specifically physical processes like putrefaction, distillation, the ascension of vapors, things like that, and it likens them to mortal processes, especially with regards to a man and a woman that come together. Of course, the fermentation or reproduction, they're dying, the purification of the corpse, and it really overlays this sort of imagery onto the basic concept of how you transmute things, how you generate things, how you change things from one substance to another in some form. It's like Hollandus' work, A Work of Saturn, which is also very good, and I just got done with it. It's now available as we speak. It wasn't yesterday. It's just got through processing. Sometimes it can be difficult to determine specifically out of context what substance is even being spoken of. It's like the lead of the philosophers in A Work of Saturn is regarded as antimony, but the description of the substance, what it does when it's reacting with vinegar, how it tastes, overpoweringly sweet. It's obviously rudimentary lead that we're talking about, but the text tries to tell you it's antimony. So obviously there's a little bit of a thinly veiled attempt to keep the untrained out of alchemy. The Rosary of the Philosophers, though, doesn't really try to do that. It does have the flowery, sort of flourishy, theatrical stage language, covering up the chemical processes in layer after layer of spiritual and divine sort of word usage. But at the same time, it can also be quite literal. It gives literal suggestions about how to accomplish different physical acts in a more experimental manner. It takes a little bit of time to get acquainted with the way in which it reads. Of course, I remove arcane language and modernize it, but as far as the density of the work goes, there's nothing that I can do regarding the Rosary of the Philosophers. You try editing it and making it easier to read without completely screwing up the meaning of the text. I would challenge anybody to do that. I don't think it's really possible. It's extremely heavy It'll take you a while to read through it with any real breadth of knowledge into what it's actually trying to tell you, because you have to read it on several different layers. There is the veiling of the physical with the spiritual. This is common to alchemical works. It's still, though, the best alchemical work that was ever released. It's also the longest as far as I know of. It is openly applauded by other alchemical figures, or in spurious works attributed to, sort of the physical scientists of the Renaissance. But it's definitely worth it. Highly recommended. If you're into alchemy at all, this would be the highest recommended work. The 12 Keys are a close second, but not that close. So again, link in the description to where you can purchase my edition. Of course, the text is from the 1500s, so it was fairly archaic in its original form. Second link to my books blog, again under maintenance, but improving steadily. That's about all. Peace out.